This is so cool, by the way. Thank you for having me. I think this is an amazing organization. And I actually really wish there had been a community of makers that we could have had access to when we started Smarty Pants, because it's a little lonely in the early days. But anyway, so he was very clear with me about making sure that I gave you guys some really good, usable advice. So I'm going to try to keep very focused on the job at hand. So as I was thinking about this idea of how to launch your product, what came into focus for me is that it's really about these key decision points. And I break them up kind of the what, the who, the where, then in what order, and at what price. So for me, those are kind of the key moments. And I really wish that I had thought about some of these questions a lot earlier. Whereas Laura, we were just talking about this, pricing being one of them, thought that she wished that she thought about some of those things a lot earlier. I know I wish I had. So I'm going to kind of walk you through those. I'm going to spend most of the time probably on the where, just because the world of retail is so crazy right now. I think it bears digging in a little bit more. But I do want to just tell you one anecdote about the what. So obviously most of you guys know what you're launching. It's why you're here. You've got a product. You have an idea. One of the things I always tell the entrepreneurs that I've spoken with is that I think situational awareness is probably one of the most important characteristics an entrepreneur can have, because there's so much information coming into you fast and furious that if you are able to slow down enough to really pay attention to the information that you're getting, it can lead to a critical pivot or change in the direction of your company. So when we started SmartyPants, it was a kids' brain health company. It was not a supplement company. We had one supplement that was going to be a part of this company launch, but that was it. And we launched this first SKU, Kids Complete, on Amazon in January of 2011 after about 60 days on our own website, just to receive some immediate customer feedback and make sure that we were focused on the right things in terms of our communications. So we launched on Amazon January 2011, and we're a kids' brain health company. We're not a supplement company. So maybe 3-4 months in, we start getting all this feedback from parents, which we had not anticipated, saying, listen, my kids love this product, I'm so excited about it, et cetera, but I really wish you had one for me because now I'm stealing my kids' vitamins. And this had not even occurred to us. My husband and I started the company together. And that is really when Gordon and I stepped back. This is maybe May, June of 2011, and we said, well, that's really interesting. And we went to the vitamin aisle, and we literally stood in the vitamin aisle of a couple of different grocery stores. We're like, wow, this whole thing is a little bit broken for the vast majority of people. There's not a solution that's designed the way we designed our Kids Complete, thinking about all these barriers to compliance. And that's a much bigger problem than the one that we were actually addressing. And isn't that interesting? And we thought about it, and it became very compelling, and we became quite obsessed with the idea, gee, I wonder if we should try to take on the entire vitamin industry and launch a line of supplements focused on this solution that we know is working for parents. So I wanted to tell that anecdote because if we had been so focused on our vision, which I know is very important and a lot of people talk about that, and had ignored this incoming input, we would be a totally different company, and my guess is probably a much smaller company. Not to say that bigger is always better, but we were interested in solving a problem for as many people as possible. So for us, this path has been really critical. So I just say that for the what, just because you've launched does not mean it's over. You could get information that might change the path. And another quick one is the who. So that's another key decision point, right? Who you're selling to, who your customer is. And there's a lot of very traditional marketing 101 information about always make a persona, create a real person in your mind who's a certain age, and right? It's a smart exercise, but this is only my perspective. It is very tough to sell something to a group of people in which you are not included. There are so many hurdles to making a product that if you're also trying to solve for the fact that you cannot imagine what the problem is like for you, that I think it's very challenging. It's why the story so consistently with these breakout stories of entrepreneurs starting with a single idea and becoming hugely successful, it's because it makes you a very elegant designer if you are solving the problem for yourself. So I would say it's not necessary. There are plenty of exceptions, obviously, where that's not the case. But I would tell you that it is much, much, much easier if you are trying to solve a problem that came to you organically. When I hear people saying, I want to be an entrepreneur because I don't want to have a boss, That is slightly worrying to me. It's got to be, I cannot sleep at night, I'm obsessed with this idea, I have to make it happen, and because you will be able to solve the problem. There are all these little things when you're designing a product. It's not this one thing. You will find it's all the little things. If you pay attention to all the little things, that adds up to something that's a competitive advantage that because you have a unique perspective, your competitor can't touch, even if they're making the same kind of thing, right? So that's the second thing. So now on to the big headline, which is the where you're selling. So this is a very big decision tree because it's got a couple parts to it. And I think of it this way. The where is first direct to consumer, like community, right? Direct to consumer business or a retail business. And then in retail, there's another decision tree, which is if you're in retail, are you online only? Are you offline only? Or are you both? And those decisions are really important. And the two that follow after it, which are in what order, and what I mean by that is if you decide to sell in retail, the order in which you launch your products in certain retailers tells people something about your brand. And at what price, all three of those questions go together. And collectively, they will tell people who you are. So the price you set for your product can create challenges for you. If you're in a vertical where prices are typically low, that means you're gonna have less margin to play with in trying to drive awareness for your product. It also tells people something about your product. So back to the where, but they're all tied together. The first part of that decision tree that's so important is figuring out if you really are best positioned by selling your product direct to consumer or if you're best positioned selling on Amazon or other retailers, right? And I would just say that there are also patterns here to look for the kinds of products that typically do very well in direct to consumer. And I think it's a really important exercise to go through and figure out which one you are. There are a lot of sexy stories out there right now about direct to consumer brands. Everyone would like to be the $1 Million Shave Club, right? It is a great opportunity, but there are definitely hallmarks or things that will improve your chances, I think, in being a direct-to-consumer business. Businesses that have high margin, things that are premium, things that have a high price point and are maybe infrequently purchased. And the reason for that is if you've got a product like mine, if you're a supplement and people maybe are buying it every month, eventually as you scale, particularly if you're in a market that has a lot of competitors, eventually you are going to be competing against Amazon for that customer. And I don't know about you guys, but we didn't have huge budgets. We had no budget when we launched, and I could not afford to compete against Amazon. So what you find with a lot of these direct-to-consumer brands is they will grow to a certain size, and this is why also it depends on what your goals are. If you're focused on launching a big mass brand, that can be very challenging in direct-to-consumer. And what you saw with $1 Million Shave Club is they were going into a market that only had two huge players that dominated and had, I think, like 90% market share. So that means an innovation is very attractive and possible. So it's just important in that first part of the decision tree, I think, to really know what market you're in, what do the market look like. And I am not a big fan, actually, of doing market research for the product, because again, I think this part, Steve Jobs, I think it's very true that someone doesn't know what the solution to their problem is until you show it to them. So we didn't do market research for any of our products. We figured that out internally, what we think the solution to that problem is, and again, why it's good to be in that group. However, market research about the category that you are operating in, whether you decide to sell direct to consumer or in retail, is really, really important, because it tells you what channel might be the smartest for you and where you're likely to have the most success, where it will be most cost effective for you to get customers, because in direct to consumer, the challenge is you have to go out and fight for those customers. It can be very attractive. It can make a lot of sense for you, but I would suggest that you want to look for some combination of those variables to see if direct to consumer would work. Is it a niche? Is it premium? Do you have good margin to spend money to go out and acquire customers? Can you go slowly so that you can learn from feedback and find the most efficient channel for acquiring those customers? When we started, we realized vitamins was it was a frequently bought product. We had a lot of competitors. Direct to consumer was not, for us, we thought, the best path. So we were focused on retail. So now we're on the other part of the decision tree, retail. And now, as you guys know, it's sort of the Wild West. So you have Amazon. It's kind of on its own. So there's e-commerce, but Amazon is 90% of that e-commerce in retail. And then you have brick and mortar. And so I think one of the smartest things to do, it's great to launch on Amazon. No question, it's the future of retail. You guys know all the news, right? They buy Whole Foods. To me, one of the most stunning pieces of news was what followed, I think, a week later and didn't get as much pickup, that they are now going into retailers and buying products at full price and then selling it on Amazon just so they have the inventory. That is a game changer, which is why within a span of 10 days, you saw Target, Costco, you saw these stocks going down. And if you're me and you're selling to all of these retailers, you're watching all the terms of those vendors change. They're coming out with new terms every 2 weeks. Because when all these other retailers are competing with Amazon for your business, and Amazon doesn't care about being profitable, Target is not going to bear the brunt of that. You are going to bear the brunt of that. I am going to bear the brunt. It is our responsibility to make it affordable to the customer. And if they're matching prices, on a per SKU basis, right? If something's on Amazon and it's on sale at Target, Amazon's matching to that price. And now even if it's in store, not just online. So it is certainly a very dynamic environment that's going on. And Amazon, I think from the right orientation, their sole stated goal is to bring the best service possible to customers. So for the end user, and I'm an Amazon shopper, it's a great service, but for the world of makers, it's very challenging. And what I would recommend is, one, you want to look very closely at the way you can sell on Amazon. So there's two paths. You can be a seller, which means that you control the store yourself. That has advantages because you're setting the price. But you can also sell to Amazon as a vendor like you would to Target. The advantage there is you're going to get access to programs to reach customers in the Amazon environment that you won't get as a seller. And you have to be at a certain size before you're even going to be approached by Vendor Central. But it's important to know that decision will come to you, and you want to have a very clear sense of what's most important to you. If you think you're going to sell in multiple channels of retail, so you're going to sell on Amazon, but you're also going to sell someday at Whole Foods, then I would make sure you understand all the pricing dynamics in your vertical, in your specific marketplace, and decide if maybe selling it yourself on Amazon is a better path because you're not going to have to compete with Amazon's pricing and going out and matching retailers, because that does make it more challenging, right? So it's really important to understand the dynamics in your particular vertical, and this is the research I was talking about. And this doesn't cost anything. So the one piece of research I would really encourage you to do, if you think you might want to sell somewhere other than just Amazon or just direct to consumer, if you think you want to go out into the retail market, go into your category on shelf and go into multiple different, go into a grocery store, go into a drugstore, go into Target or Walmart, and go into Costco. And look at the price for the product in every single one of those channels and look at the pricing difference. And that's why, a lot of vendors will do this through size. It's what we did. So we sell one size in Whole Foods, we sell another size in grocery, and we sell another size at Costco. And the reason everything's cheaper at Costco is because the vendors are getting an economy of scale by putting things in a bigger bottle. So they literally have a different cost of goods. They can pass that savings on to you. But it's very important in your particular market to understand the relationships between those retailers so that in the very early days, before you're even there, when you're setting your pricing, you're thinking, oh, okay, if I sell it here today on Amazon at this price, then I know it's going to be this price at Whole Foods, it'll be this price at Target, it'll be this price. And I know that seems crazy, but if you don't think about it in advance, it is incredibly difficult and expensive to unwind. And it's also really hard to raise your prices. It's a lot easier to lower your prices. So this is it's a free exercise. It's one I desperately wish we had done in the very early days, to just go into your category and just pick a brand that's sold across all those retailers and pick a product that you see they're selling across all those retailers and just watch the prices. Watch the relationship between the retailers and watch it change over time, and it'll start to teach you about what you might want to do as a strategy in terms of pricing. So the last thing I'll say, Amazon is critically important. It is the future of retail. The most important thing you can do for yourself on Amazon is to focus on rank and reviews. And the review environment is changing very quickly. I think Amazon, and this is the right thing, have become very focused on making sure those reviews are valid. And so they are preferencing now verified purchase reviews over reviews that don't have that little tag on it, which is a good thing. You want to know that. And we never got in the business of buying reviews, but there are companies that are still out there doing that, right, to drive rank. But that is the most important thing you can do, is to really focus on sharing your story with people that use the product, and you can certainly encourage them to share their perspective. And the smartest thing that we ever did was to make sure that every single review on Amazon got a response. And I mean every single one, particularly every single negative review. We have to this day engaged with every negative review that has ever been posted on any SmartyPants product on Amazon. And what happens is you will find that the majority of the business, at least for us, comes from your interaction with that negative review, way more than any positive review you'll ever get. We had some comment about our product in 2011, and I remember Gordon, my husband, co-founder, responded to it saying, listen, I want you to really understand, here's my email address, and if you send us a request, we will send you a bottle so you can live with it for 30 days and see what you think. The number of requests we still get from that interaction, which was 5 years ago. You know, and online, that stuff is eternal. It never goes away. So for the Amazon environment, the most important thing obviously is reviews, but the second most important thing is that decision about whether you're gonna be on Seller Central or Vendor Central. Because controlling your destiny when things are changing this quickly, I think, is very smart. And I will just say we're on Vendor Central. We're not on Seller Central. And there are a lot of advantages because we get programs and marketing and advertising, but that ability to really control your destiny in a world where it's very challenging to know what's going to happen next can be very helpful. And the last vote I will give for traditional retail, which is although Amazon is growing very quickly, and in our vertical, they are the fastest growing channel for distribution and sales, they're still only 15%. And so we had to make the decision that everyone talks about Amazon a lot, but it might be a small percentage of where the customers are. So you want to be there to have the real estate and to start building that review base, but you might need to go into retail for people to see your product and to have enough brand awareness. One of the things I didn't think about is that retail is brand awareness. If you don't have huge marketing budgets, distribution can serve as brand. We are nationwide in Costco now. I can tell you for a fact the aided awareness of my brand went from 25% to 45% in a period of 2 weeks simply because we were on the shelf. Now you can't just put it up there and leave it there, which is a mistake a lot of folks make. You do have to get out there and support the brand. But retail is still very viable. You just it is situational awareness. You got to watch what's going on, and understanding that pricing relationship is really one of the most important things I think you could do for yourself in the very early days.
Any questions?
So you talk about direct to consumer.
One of the reasons that you want the advantage of direct to consumer is that you own the customer data, right? Which influences deeply your ability to share new product launches, get their feedback. And it's why I said when we first launched SmartyPants, we were direct to consumer for about 60 days before we put the product on Amazon solely so that we could get immediate feedback. What message did we care about but wasn't getting through to the customer when they got the package, right? Or what did they like, what did they not? Give me your top 5 things that drove you crazy. You can do that when you have the relationship. And it's, you can see the $1 Million Shave Club, part of that purchase price was because they owned that data. On Seller Central, you're not owning the data in the same way. And there are controls around your ability to message to people, right, in that platform that would be very different than direct to consumer. Does that answer your question?
Direct to consumer, when you say direct to consumer, you mean selling on your own website.
Correct. That's correct. I'm sorry. Yes, direct to consumer is selling on your own site. Selling on Amazon. Correct. Seller Central is like you setting up a storefront, but you're still inside Amazon, as opposed to your website. And listen, the great thing about direct to consumer is you're owning 100% the brand experience for someone. You've got a price, and every single touch point that person's having with your brand, you've controlled, which is really, really nice. You just have all these other variables you have to contend with.
Amazon is not loyal to you so much. They're loyal to their customer.
Exactly.
So what are the risks that Amazon is going to find somebody to replace you? Or their own product, you're Seller Central, and they have their own product, and they're going to undercut you, and now what do you do?
Great question. So the question is, what are the risks that they just come in and undercut you with private label, which they are clearly doing. So in the last 7 months, they have started rolling out private label lines in every one of the verticals. And they're very smart. They look at where the high margin verticals are, where they're going to make the most money, and let's go private label there, right? It is all about leverage. Now we have five categories where we're the number one product. So we happen to have leverage in our vertical because we are a top selling brand. I will tell you, the more customers you have in Subscribe and Save, probably the more leverage you have. So we happen to have the top percentage of Subscribe and Save in our entire category, which means the number of people who opt in to get repeat purchase, right? Brand is always leverage. So even if they launch private label, if you have done something that you know is very unique, typically in the world of private label, they're not going to invest in quality. Now, Amazon's positioning is that they are investing in quality, but it's still a different level. It's just like going into Costco. The Kirkland brand is good, but they still carry premium brands because that premium brand reflects on the retailer. So the key is to be something that makes Amazon look good. We make Amazon look good because we're a very quality-driven company that uses these ingredients that a lot of supplement makers don't use, that are the more expensive, premium, bioavailable, blah, blah, blah. But having that positioning of premium or something that's bringing something different to the table than what they could do with private label, but it's really smart to think about. Like, what am I doing that someone could just easily copy, right, and make, and understand the proposition that your brand brings to the table that would drive loyalty? Because Amazon wants that, right? They want both. All the private label guys want your product there because it helps sell their product. If you have a more expensive product, it moves the private label product off the shelf. So those are all leverage points, I would say. Having a high price point, being premium, very quality driven, that provides protection, I would think.